Hey everyone, welcome to the Download Podcast, episode 37. This week we're going to be talking about our top 5 action movies. Now, this is going to be a little different. We're not going to be listing comic book movies, movies with sci-fi or fantasy or alien elements. It is just straight action movies. And we're going to just go give our round of what they are and go from there. We hope you enjoy. So,
all right, I'll kick off the party. All right, my number 5 is Die Hard from 1988. Okay, classic movie, holds up well over time. It's always going to be in the top 5 for me. You know, just redefined a lot of stuff when Bruce Willis kicked it into gear.
And it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
And it's actually very practical because all of the weapons used in that movie chambered 9mm, even the MP5s. So it's believable that he doesn't run out of ammo because as he runs into the terrorist, takes him out, he can reload his Beretta with the same ammunition.
Right.
Never considered that, but yeah.
Completely grounded in reality.
Mm-hmm. Of course, based off of a book that was originally going to have Frank Sinatra playing him instead of Bruce Willis.
How different of a movie that would have been.
Exactly.
It'd be like crossing Hudson Hawk and Die Hard together.
Total different tone.
Yeah. All right.
David?
Oh, am I up next? Sorry. You know what? This is really in no particular order. The one that immediately jumps off my list as I'm looking at though was Man on Fire with Denzel Washington, right? Fantastic movie, dude. There's just beginning to end. The whole thing is such a great ride. The relationship he develops with Dakota Fanning and just how good of an actress she was, even for that movie, right? For being a kid actor, but just Denzel, man, he just crushed it in that movie. So good.
Denzel's always a good choice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, my number 5 is Infernal Affairs, and that's because comparing it to Departed, I love Departed. But it does get too long to watch it over and over. And Infernal Affairs is the original, cuts to the chase, and it's just as good, has all those same tense moments. I actually prefer the scene in the Chinese version when it gets to the part where like they almost discover each other's identity. I feel like it's a lot more tense in the Chinese rendition of it, the original. So that's my number 5 for being the OG of the two.
I was gonna say they also just about that movie, right? There's a lot more. I think there's a lot more clever things they do with it, right? Like the actual way that you find out that he's communicating everything is through him tapping like on his cast and all that stuff. It just yes, it is. It's a better movie overall. It's much tighter, like you said. It's a little bit shorter, so the plot sticks to a much tighter schedule, and it's more enjoyable watch.
Yeah, it's got that better action movie pacing.
Jack Nicholson diving into a pile of cocaine aside and assaulting people in a adult film theater. I mean, it's missing those two aspects, sadly, but the rest of it was fantastic.
All right. So my number 5, or Colin, did you want to ask?
No, I was going to say your turn.
Okay. So my number 5 is going to be John Wick. Fantastic gunplay, action scene. The music's fantastic. Of course, the story is, a guy who's an ex-hitman getting upset because his dog died. Even though it's more than that, it's the last item his wife gave him. But I mean, the acting cast in that movie was great. John Leguizamo. I mean, just this is a fantastic movie. So that's definitely my number 5.
I think the thing that I appreciate the most that John Wick did was brought back the Steadicam, right?
Yes.
The long shot Steadicam in action movies. The Bourne trilogy, I don't know if that's on anybody's list. I apologize for getting to it right. helped to create the whole shaky cam nonsense. You have like the Taken series where it's a lot of fast cuts and all that because of the struggles with the main actor and being able to get through all those action scenes. And Wick was such a breath of fresh air when it came out that you just like, man, did I just watch him take out a whole room of guys in one solid shot? That's amazing. I love this. It's fantastic.
And going back to practical effects for that film too. I mean, there are some of the stuff that's done with a little bit of CGI, but most of that stuff was done practical.
Okay. Me again?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Number 4, 1985's Code of Silence with Chuck Norris. Okay. Basically, he's he becomes kind of like the what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, he's a cop and he gets shunned basically by the other cops because he starts speaking against another cop who is like way beyond his prime. He's a bit of a drinker and stuff like that. And during the process of it in Chicago, this is when, they decided they were going to try and do automated like robot tanks and stuff like that, like the things that they got now for the SWAT teams. And so they were trying to introduce that at the same time. So they had this whole exchange with Chuck Norris and this robot and everything. And then toward the end, there's this big thing that happens, and I'm trying not to do spoilers. Basically, he goes out there to help this one cop, and he's left alone, and all the other cops are ignoring the call, and he has to kind of reprove himself and stuff like that.
I think it's something I've seen, so I'll have to check it out, definitely.
I think 40 years is a good buffer for spoilers.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Well, right now, I've got 2 people who have said they don't remember it.
Yeah,
I am well documented that I do not care about. It's fine.
Well, I will say this: Steven Seagal's movie Above the Law, his first movie, was almost a reshoot of Code of Silence, almost scene for scene, location for location. When I watched Above the Law, it was like watching another actor do his version of Code of Silence.
Very nice.
So no, it wasn't really nice.
Let's hear.
All right.
Alrighty. I guess sticking to somewhat the theme of my previous movie of a relationship of an older guy and a little girl, kind of weirdly. Leon, right? The professional. Man, the first time I watched that movie, I was weirded out by the whole thing with him and Natalie Portman, but Gary Oldman in that movie, man, such a good villain when he just plugs in the earbuds and goes through and just absolutely annihilates her family. And then his quote at the end when he's like, "I need, give me everyone." Are you sure, sir? Everyone, just every bit, right? Such a good act put on by Mr. Oldman and Jean Reno, man, doing almost the stoic protagonist having to deal with the awkwardness of the little girl, just all the way through, all the way down to that whole final sequence with the grenades. And this is from Matilda. It's an awesome movie, fantastic.
All right, my number 4 is I thought about it like as far as buddy cop movies go, which ones really had the most impression on me from growing up and all that. And for me, it's Rush Hour. So Jackie Chan, he just steals the show with the stunts. Then you got Chris Tucker's, color commentary, and yeah, I love the Rush Hour series, especially the first one. They like nailed it. So that's my number 4. It's a good old Rush Hour.
Fantastic movie right there.
Yeah.
I actually hadn't watched those in a long time, and I got the whole all 3 of them on Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my son just sat down, man. I forgot how good those movies were. Turned it on in the afternoon, and we just blazed through every single one of them all in order. It was just they were that good that you could just sit down and watch them back to back to back, and it was just entertaining the whole way through.
Well, we had was it my birthday one year? We were all at my house. We were going to go see a movie. and that's the movie we went and saw. I think it was my 18th birthday or my 19th birthday. All my friends were over, and we're like, all right, let's go. Movie just was amazing. I mean, getting to see both Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan together in a movie, and they just mesh very well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they just all the energy from both of them is just all over the screen in every scene. It's awesome.
Yeah. Never gets old.
No.
No, it doesn't.
So that's our first buddy cop movie. Now,
Took a minute.
Huh?
I said it took a minute.
Yeah, it took a minute.
That's fine.
So funny it is that my number 4 is the same as David's. So I mean, that movie is done by Luc Besson. It had Danny Aiello in it as the boss of Leon, and yeah, just like Gary Oldman just eats the scenery, man. He's just like one of the best parts of that movie. But it's great because you get to see the Leon is this, which is funny because it's the second movie I've listed on my list that has a hitman as the main character. And Leon, you could just see the innocence of him. He's this great professional hitman, but he's innocent. I mean, he's like not. He wants to get out of the life. He's hesitant to give Natalie Portman's character the opportunity he does, but he just gives in eventually. But their relationship is very awkward. Very awkward.
A little bit.
All right. Number 3, 2014, John Wick.
Yeah.
Absolutely have to come back around to John Wick because.
So why is it ranked higher for you than on Vince's list?
I don't know. I would have to say it just being of the older generation than that. You guys, I have been able to witness several bursts of good action movies over time, and when up until John Wick, there wasn't really a lot of really good stuff. And when John Wick came back out, like the guy said earlier, it reinvigorated the whole action genre for me. It really just revitalized it. It was something that it was one of those movies where I literally could just sit there at the edge of my seat through the whole thing because it had me from very early on.
It's definitely one of those movies that has a little bit of everything. You got gunplay, you got close to close hand-to-hand combat, you got car chases. I mean, it's just amazing. But I guess for me, the reasons why John Wick is as low as it is on my list is because there's movies that stand out above it, even though I love John Wick. So, but sorry, Colin.
No, go ahead. Go. Go.
Hey, all these lists are always subjective, right? Somebody might have, some random movie from the 40s that no one's ever heard of that just had a really cool fight scene that someone watched at a penultimate moment of their life, and that's just stuck with them, and that's just their number one and always will be, right? So let's see here. Next on my list, I've been debating where I should place this, and again, it's in no particular order, but one of the movies that I remember watching a ton of in high school once it was introduced to me, and it was just so crazy, so fun. The second one didn't even remotely live up to the first one. The opening, whenever I first saw them drop a toilet on top of someone's head, I was absolutely sold with the Boondock Saints.
Oh, there you go.
It's such a weird, crazy nutball of a movie, but man, it's just fun, right? The banter between the brothers when the dad, makes his entrance, when they shoot the cat, it's great. It was just a ton of fun. The action, however you feel about slow-mo, right? But it was cool to see how you would see everything unfold, right? Through Willem Dafoe, and as the movie went along, he started appearing more and more in the action and kind of narrating his way through it. It was awesome. It was good. It was for it being what it was, what it is. I enjoyed quite a bit.
Well, yeah, you had what, Norman Reedus and Sean Patrick Flannery. The that movie changed a lot of people's perspective on action films. For the type of film it was. Yeah, it was definitely one of the ones we watched a lot in our house.
Oh yeah.
All right.
All right. My number 3, and I did put mine in an order because to me it's movies that stuck with me, and then like rewatchability for them for me is a big one. And
Yeah.
so for me, my number 3 is Kill Bill. And I was already a Tarantino fan by the time it came out. So, I was looking forward to going to see it. And it's just that movie came out at like the right time when I was a kid, because I had just started getting into anime. I had already seen action movies about like getting revenge, getting even, and all that. And Quentin just puts it together in such a great package. And being familiar with Pulp Fiction, not too thrown off with the chapters being out of order, things like that. And it was a movie like at my age I could keep up with it. I could appreciate all the action, and the soundtrack was just amazing to that movie. Like, you were in every scene with that music. It just put you in those scenes. And yeah, that's a solid 3 for me as Kill Bill.
Cool.
Yeah, and I mean that thing, there was so much style to it, right? I mean, just everyone always remembers the very first movie with the fight with the crazy 88s
Mhm.
and all that. Tarantino really went to the next level of just trying to infuse as much style to that movie,
styles.
more so than anything else that he'd done up to that point. Yeah, I mean, like you said, from the music to, I mean, again, all the way down to just how every little thing was shot. It was great.
Getting into my number 3, I mean, this is the ultimate buddy cop movie, and that is Lethal Weapon.
Another Christmas movie.
Another Christmas movie. I mean, the dynamic. I was talking to Dad about this. The dynamic between Murtaugh and Riggs is unique in the fact that they're, once in a perfect ideal family situation, guy he's about to retire and stuff like that, and he takes on this like rookie cop in a way, or this loose cannon. And there's moments in the movie that they're comedic, but they're not like a action comedy. They're kind of to break the tension that's going on, because that movie is really dark in tone. Like just the fact of, and how that the villain, basically targets Murtaugh's family and like is going after him because they're friends with someone who served in the military with him, and then just everything in that movie is just fantastic. There's not a moment that you're sitting there you feel that the story is dulling, or it's one of those ones you can just put in. It stands the test of time. It doesn't feel dated. You feel like you're transported to 87, I think, when that movie came out. I don't remember. And it left a big impact on me growing up.
Cool. Yeah, I almost put that on my list. I'm like, no, somebody else is going to claim it. All right. My number 2, 2008's Quantum of Solace. Now, I chose this one for a number of reasons. Huh?
That's an interesting choice. Quantum of Solace is generally regarded as the crappiest of the Daniel Craig movies, so I'm curious to hear what drew you into it.
That's the one with the parkour in it, right?
No, that's Casino Royale.
Casino Royale.
Oh shit. Okay.
Quantum of Solace is the one that follows after.
Okay,
that.
yes, Casino Royale then.
No, you're good. We can hold on. We can edit this. Let's do it again. Let's start us over.
No, what? No, we gotta keep
No,
this.
no, let me own it. Let me own it. Nah. See? Because I was asking and I misdirected. That's fine. Casino Royale, based on the original book. I'm an old school Bond fan, and Casino Royale had been done before with what George Lazenby,
Yeah,
which was entirely forgetful. But
was Woody Allen, right?
No, it was Woody
was he
Allen.
doing it?
I think it was.
With Peter Sellers, Woody Allen.
No, George Lazenby was the actor.
There was a comedy one.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking of.
Peter
Was it
Peter
Peter Sellers?
Sellers.
Yeah.
Wait, wasn't George Lazenby in? Oh my God. All right.
We're all
Next.
losing our minds. It's fine.
We'll fix it. We'll fix it.
No,
We can
no,
fix
just-
it in post. We can fix it in post.
Oh my
Yep.
God.
No, but I agree about Casino Royale because it made Bond
Casino
serious
Royale.
again.
Yeah, so David Niven was Bond. Peter Sellers was in it, and Woody Allen was in it as Jimmy Bond. So we're all
Yeah.
in the
We're all
in the
right.
ballpark.
Yeah, we're all there.
Orson Welles is in that movie. Okay, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
he's the chief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm a Bond fan.
Hey man, it's hard to keep everybody's names and faces together in the back of your head, right?
Uh,
Especially
when
we
you got
were like
someone
20
who
years
was
ago.
I should have a T-shirt, double lot not. Even save us.
What? Oh, it's my turn. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's your turn,
All
brother.
right. So we were talking about Tarantino just a minute ago, right? So Tarantino's partner in crime for a while was Robert Rodriguez. Put together a nice little trilogy, the middle of which is a fantastic little action film called Desperado, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Desperado, such a good movie, right? That was where I got introduced to Robert Rodriguez. I wish he would go back. He's gone full Spy Kids. It feels like here lately. Like I wasn't the biggest fan of Battle Angel. It was fine, but it wasn't what I was hoping it was be. And it just seems like he's gotten away from. I don't know if he's just gotten away from that formula or what's been going on. But man, just Desperado was so good with the setups, the payoffs to it. Just the guy wandering into town and just absolutely massacring people, seemingly by accident because he just was in the wrong place at the wrong time and it just spiraled out of control, but not really. And then you had the whole tie-ins to the original El Mariachi, which if you had no idea, which I don't think anyone did, it was a little confusing in parts because
yeah.
didn't entirely make sense, but still, man, the scene where he shoots up the bar, that whole fight is awesome. And of course he kills Cheech and then is resurrected. And the introduction of Danny Trejo, right? His big old tattoo and throwing knives at everybody. Man, just so much of that movie I love. It's good.
Machete.
And
Even though Machete was introduced in Spy Kids,
Yeah.
which is horrifying on its own.
my number 2 is exactly the same, Desperado.
Nice.
And I was familiar with El Mariachi because I grew up in a household where Telemundo was a station that got turned on every now and then. So it was a complete change, and it really stuck with me a lot more than the first. It's kind of his Rodriguez getting into movie making El Mariachi, and like he's got the birth of a concept, and then completely changes tone in Desperado, and just the lines, the action, the opening is so great. The dream sequence of him playing in the bar, and then the guy that killed his girlfriend being there clapping. It's just such a good movie, and all the humor in it. I watch it, I laugh at all the punchlines still. It's near and dear to my heart. I love Desperado.
We just wanted to let you know your beer tastes like piss.
We know. It's because we piss in it.
Yeah, the first time I ever watched that movie, I learned Quentin Tarantino's entire long form joke through that, just to retell it, just because it was so much fun. But I love long form jokes like that. So that I think that might have been where it started. Was that little joke right there, and I was like, man, you can tell jokes that run on for that long and have that funny of a punchline. I need to go find more of these, just to watch as people's eyes glaze over, and then you deliver the punchline. And, oh yeah, this was a joke, wasn't it?
Okay. So my number 2 is The Raid Redemption. Fantastic. And it's one of those things that I saw this before, of course, John Wick. A group of police officers raid a building that's run by a crime lord, unaware that they're the only ones who know about this mission. Not even the precinct knows, so they're alone. And it deals with one character, the main character, of course, running into family inside the building, and them working together towards the end of the movie anyway. But the action scenes in that movie are great, and the drama that's going on, very intense, very brutal. And I would say even more than John Wick. And I love the sequel too.
Oh yeah, man. There's nothing more tense in that movie or puckering than the scene where he's hiding in that false wall, right? And the dude's just stabbing the machete through it, and then he cuts him right through the cheek. Like that whole sequence, you're just like, wow, this is getting nuts. And I mean, what sets it up so well is the just massacre that happens.
Oh yeah.
Towards the beginning, you're like, oh, okay, this is gonna be like a cop thing, and nope. It's a massacre, and it turns into survival of the fittest as best you can as they fought their way through there.
Yeah, and then when him and his brother are fighting the one henchman.
Oh, dude,
they're fighting him in that the torture room and stuff, or whatever
So
shower
good.
room that was. That was just so good, just both of them, and he was just still going even when his freaking net's cut. He's still trying to take them out. Yeah, fantastic movie. So. All right, now we're going to be on our number ones, but let's go ahead and go into our honorable mentions.
All right. I have two. The first one is the movie Taxi from 2004 with Jimmy Fallon and Queen Latifah. A grossly underrated movie. You know, Queen Latifah had already settled herself as a pretty good actress, but it was the first time Jimmy Fallon had gotten up there and done something that wasn't just straight comedy. And it kind of grabbed my attention that way. And there were quite a few really good action sequences, and a lot of it had to do with driving stuff, which, you know, who doesn't love a good action sequence in a car? So now that one's kind of stuck with me over the years. But the one that's really stuck with me, when I talked about sitting on the edge of your seat earlier, this was the first movie that made me really do that. And that's 1997's The Peacemaker, with George Clooney and Nicole Kidman. Basically, he was trying to stop a lone terrorist from trying to get to the UN.
Not familiar with that one.
I
Oh,
haven't seen it either.
oh man, you did. That's one of the ones I have to recommend, because George Clooney's a military guy, and Nicole Kidman she's like head of one of the nuclear regulation committees, commissions and stuff like that. And they call her in for her expertise on it. And she and Clooney clashing on it, and then the two of them end up running together to try and solve the stuff. And they go basically all over the world, you know, where they know the little clues are and everything. It's a fantastic movie, about an hour and a half long, I believe. Really good, gripping movie.
Okay.
Some great suspense, a lot of great action sequences. So those are my two.
Nice. So honorable mentions, and it's funny because you kind of touched on it with your Chuck Norris movie earlier, right? About
Code of Silence,
right, and dealing with kind of crooked cops and all that. I actually haven't sat down and watched it in a while, but every once in a while I'll think about it, and I honestly need to watch it again. And that was 16 Blocks, right, with Bruce Willis and Mos Def.
Yeah,
he's,
okay.
Mos Def is going to be going and basically tattling on a bunch of corrupt cops, and Bruce Willis is just trying to get him to the courthouse. He's got to get him across 16 blocks while he's got, you know, all these crooked cops pulling all their strings and trying to keep it from happening. Right. I think it kind of came and went. I know of a handful of people that you know watched it and enjoyed it, but I think it's underrated. It's a good solid little film.
It's a retelling of Clint Eastwood's The Gauntlet.
Yes.
Well,
No,
I'm
well done remake,
I guess.
Yeah, I like 16 Blocks. A lot of people complain about Mos Def in that one, about how he was like ruining scenes, but I think it was good chemistry with him and Bruce Willis.
Absolutely.
It was one of his it was one of Mos Def's he's only done a few movies, but that was like one of his first ones. So he was
Yeah.
still learning the ropes.
Yeah, but I mean, even with him still learning the ropes, right? Like he chose to go with a character that spoke with a lisp and all this stuff, and he played to that character, right? He picked a way to go with it, and he went with it, and I had no problem with him, right? Like he never really took me out of the film watching it. It was really good. I really enjoy that film, and now I'm gonna have to go find the Gauntlet and watch that and see how it stacks up. I might make that a double feature one of these days.
Oh yeah, Gauntlet's good.
I'll check it out.
Man.
So you mentioning stuff about car sequences a minute ago made me want to bring up Ronin, but I'll leave that one alone, see if anybody else picks it up. The other action movie that I've only recently watched within the last year and a half, but really enjoyed, was a little movie called The Guest. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of it. I've heard people try and say that it started the 80s nostalgia stuff, but it's mostly just for the music. The entire concept of it was this soldier comes into this town to tell the family of one of the people that he served with that, hey, he passed away. And they're like, oh, hey, well, where are you going? What you got going on? Oh, not really. And so they invite him to stay. And very slowly you start to see this guy is not exactly well adjusted, and shenanigans ensue from there. And it's entertaining. There's some stuff that goes on in that movie with this guy where he just it's almost like his own personal sense of justice that he just mets out on people. And there's a little bit of a kind of government cover up experiment subplot that's sort of sprinkled in it very lightly. But if you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend going and checking out The Guest and giving it a run, because it's an entertaining little flick.
Cool.
All right, so my honorable mentions kind of flesh out to make my top 10. So my first one is Smoking Aces. Was another one of those big action movies that came out when I was a kid, and
love that.
who doesn't want to live in the world where everybody wants to kill Jeremy Piven? I mean, that's just no, but yeah, Alicia Keys with her 50 cal, and just all the humor in the movie, the squad that takes out Ben Affleck. Again, who wouldn't want to kill Ben Affleck? It just it's just a lot of great moments in that movie, great
Early
lines to
Chris
remember.
Pine.
Oh yeah, and but for me, what brings it off of the top 5 is that the whole plot at the end about Primo Speraza, and he was a FBI agent, and he changes it, like that kind of was like hokey to me, and kind of ruins the movie for me. I guess I just wish it had a better
better wrap up,
better twist at the end of it than that. But the action, it got great action sequences.
Yeah, that I totally forgot about it till you mentioned it. Yeah, that is one of my well circulated movies.
And I haven't watched the sequel because I didn't hear good things. But one of these days I'll sit down. And
sequel was horrible.
It's what I hear, so I haven't seen it.
Oh man, Players Ball. Oh god, that was awful.
And then,
absolutely awful.
And then up next is The Bourne Identity, and it's simply not in the top 5 because it has Matt Damon in it as the main character. But I liked watching it. I liked the whole beginning sequence and him having amnesia, and then this whole crazy train ride that happens after that. Like everything just ramps up and ramps up and ramps up, and it has great pacing, and it really gets you gripped into the movie and makes you want to see how it's going to conclude. And then they had to go and ruin it with Jeremy Renner, but and then next up on the list, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Okay. And I just feel that Rush Hour is the better humor movie when it comes to action. But Mr. and Mrs. Smith had great action sequences, made me laugh. The dynamic between them, like the whole they're coming after each other, and then their relationship kind of solidifies. Like, oh, we are kind of into each other, kind of thing, and then together they fight and resolve their conflict. And I just thought it was a great movie. Growing up, that was one I watched a few times. And then up next, Way of the Gun.
Okay.
That was my first experience in a movie opening up with so much cussing. So, so like, I didn't know what to expect with that movie starting out, and I really enjoy the performances in that movie. The ending sequence, the shootout, is just crazy. It's just got action movie written all over it. And then last up on my list is the Transporter, because that was
Okay.
my first dive into the Jason Statham solo action movie experience. And I didn't realize that for the next 20 years, I'd get the same Jason Statham solo action movie experience. So the OG, the first experience of it, yeah, that's why it goes into my top 10.
All right. I will say Transporter is pretty good, but Transporter 2 is better, in my personal opinion.
I like
For
the
some
car
reason.
better in Transporter.
That's fair.
The BMW over the Audi.
All right, so I only have two. Actually, I almost had a third because Colin mentioned Taxi, and as I was thinking of Collateral. It's a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
Jamie Foxx and
Tom Cruise.
See,
Tom Cruise.
that was one of the ones I was borderline on, right? How much of
Yeah.
it is really an action
Yes,
movie, and how
because it's-
like how much of it is it almost feels like it falls a little bit more into the thriller area
Yeah.
because there's so much of them just driving around talking. I mean, it's a fantastic movie, right? Like
Yeah.
it's
Suspenseful.
tense between him and Tom Cruise, but yeah, I debated on that one a little bit.
Yeah. That's why I didn't put it in my list. I mean, it's such a fantastic movie, but it's like I can't because it doesn't have that a lot of action in it until
Right.
towards the end.
And
It had little
the funny
bursts of
thing-
it.
the funny thing about it is really when I think about Collateral, it almost feels like the proto John Wick, right? Just from
Yes.
another point of view, because it's still the whole assassin thing. There's kind of the mythos, like there's the whole underbelly of the city that's going on with it, and you're just seeing it from the other set of eyes. And yeah, no, it's really, really good.
I've always felt that movie had more of a Eastern storytelling style, like it was like adapted from a Japanese anime than something here in the West. Just because the relationship between the two, how things go down, and the tension build up. I don't know, it didn't feel. That's just how I felt about it, I guess, because I guess I was more into anime at the time when I was watching it. But so my first honorable mention, of course, is Commando. You can't go wrong with Arnold Schwarzenegger being a ex-military special forces going up against a group of terrorists and ex-members of his team,
Right. Yeah.
or at least one ex-member of his team. I mean, the catchphrases alone in that movie are the best.
Yeah, Arnold and his one-liners.
Yeah, man.
And man, that one's probably chock full of more one-liners than most of his movies.
Most of his movie, yeah.
Yeah.
Let off some steam, Bennett.
Don't disturb my friend. He's dead tired.
I
That
eat green
one.
berets for breakfast.
Lied.
All right, so my other last honorable mention is going to be Point Break. I
Okay.
just love that story between Johnny Utah and what's his name? Bodie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know why my brain's not here for that. But yeah, I love it. It's technically the origins of Fast and the Furious, or at least the through lines there. Instead of extreme sports, it's sports cars. Come on.
That's fair.
Yeah, yeah. They in both movies, the undercover agent falls in love with the bad guy. So platonic
guy-
love.
Yeah.
Come on.
Romance.
It was an endearing bromance. It definitely was.
Come on, you got that action scene where he just like rolls on his back and starts shooting in the air. They make fun of
What's
it.
funny is I had never seen Point Break, and so technically I saw that scene first in Hot Fuzz, and then I rolled back around and saw it.
It's like you ever blow out your knee and
You ever jump through the air while shooting two guns at the same time?
which makes me think of your, which takes me right to Airplane. Oh boy! All right,
That's that definitely one right there is Hot Fuzz. That's definitely a great action comedy.
One of the best kills of any movie ever was the steeple falling on the dude's, like it just impaling through the dude's head.
No.
It was so good.
No, it's freaking Timothy Dalton flying through the air and getting the steeple through his chin, going, "Ow, this hurts." That's the blood just kind of spurting out of his mouth.
Yeah, that's one thing about the Shaun of the Dead in that movie is those two movies have two of my favorite death scenes from those type of movies where you had Dylan Moran and Shaun get pulled through the window and then just reached into his guts and just ripped him apart. And then, but yeah, and then Hot Fuzz is where they drop that, just goes through the dude and it lingers on it just long enough to be effective and then cuts away. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Colin.
I was gonna say one of my favorite kill scenes of all time was in Punisher Warzone. When the guys are jumping from roof to roof, you got the one guy doing a full cartwheel, and Punisher takes him out with a bazooka mid cart.
There you go.
It was brilliant and funny at the same time. All right, the number one. All right, my number one comes from 1981. It is Enter the Ninja with Franco Nero. Okay. Movie, it takes place entirely in the Philippines, and as he is a formerly trained ninja who is basically just looking to have a little bit more of a peaceful life, and then somehow this guy's plantation, he's a friend of his, starts getting run over by a crime boss, and the crime boss says, "Oh, he's got a ninja. Well, I'm gonna go get me a ninja." And it turns out to be this guy who's, trained with the main character Cole, and from there it just turns out to be a ninja movie, which I love ninja movies. I mean, it's got a lot of old school martial arts, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't like wall to wall action, but there was plenty of ninja goodness, ninja martial art goodness scattered throughout. So, but it was early 80s. What do you expect?
If it's early 80s and it doesn't have ninjas, it's not the 80s.
Yeah.
But it's a movie that I have so much love that I have the original VHS release of it tucked away, and I paid a lot of money for it, and I have since then gotten digitally because I don't want to keep breaking out the completely rare video cassette. Get the big old oversized bookcase edition, and it's crazy. I'll take some pictures of it and send them to you.
Very nice, man. So it's been brought up multiple times at this point, so I don't know that it only bears repeating because it's at the top of my list, and that's Wick, right? I just the very first time I saw that movie, I completely stumbled on it at random. I hadn't heard anybody talking about it yet. Watched it, and like I said, it reestablished just a way of filming those movies. And it's not just the first one, but the second one as well. That whole opening scene where he goes to get his car back and he gets hit, and it's just a solid shot of him getting hit and falling out of the car all at that one time. It was so good. And I'm halfway worried that they're ruining it because it feels like it's overstaying its welcome at this point. We're getting to like 4 or 5 movies. It's like, 4. Okay, guys, just I know it's 4, but it's I think they're going to a 5th, and then they've got the TV show. I mean, just the mythos that got built up the mythos that got built up in the movie was so interesting. Again, going back to the whole Collateral bit, it really took that idea of that seedy underbelly and then just cranked it up to an almost comic book level of these villains that lived inside it. That it was entertaining way more than I ever thought it would be. Rejuvenated Keanu's career, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And like I said, my only fear at this point is it might get knocked down a little bit because they just it feels almost like they don't know how to end it. Like it's almost to the point where he needs to die, but they don't want to kill him. So we'll see how it ages as it goes along. But man, at the minimum, those first two are I can watch them any day, anytime, and
Right.
just sit through the whole thing. It's so good.
All right, my number one is Hot Fuzz. And a recurring thing in my list has been, minus Infernal Affairs, has been humor. And I feel like a great action movie's got to have good humor. It's got to have over the top action sequences. And Hot Fuzz is just like a love letter to cop action movies. And you know the just the sequences, the references, the movies that you can tell heavily influence the movie. It's not just there as bits to like just reference other movies. You can tell these guys love those movies, and you can see it ingrained into the DNA. The British humor really ties it all together great. You know, growing up watching Monty Python, you know, I love British humor, and just you know all those scenes that make fun of their accents, how they can't even understand each other in their own country, and it's just it's such a good movie that that's easily my number one for action movies. It's got that rewatchability. It makes me laugh every single time. To me, it's a really solid, great action movie for my number one.
The scene where they have to take the one officer out to translate the farmer.
Oh, yeah.
Man, the first time I saw that, I was dying the whole time.
The translator for the translator.
Or the two brothers that work different shifts, so you think they're the same person.
Oh yeah.
The
I
punishment
love the whole
through
thing.
treats.
Huh? What's that do?
I said the way that they punished everybody through treats, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Here,
we
have
gotta
some
get
cake.
ice cream.
We got some ice cream.
To this day, if somebody asks me a yes or no question and it's no, it's always NARP.
No, was it I just loved how the fact that like all the old people were the villains in the movie. Just like them busting out with all these weapons and stuff and thinking that they're badasses.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's like your HOA being a crime syndicate. You know,
That's awesome.
who doesn't want to have a shootout with their HOA? You know.
When those
Okay.
letters come across, man, you definitely won't feel like, hey, let's go out in the field over there and have this out because my grass isn't that high. Y'all need to calm down.
All right.
I mowed it. God's sakes.
All right. We're
There's no-
copyrighting that concept right here.
Yeah.
We own that.
You just start noticing your neighbors disappearing. You know.
For the
And
greater
suddenly
good
their
of
garden
the
looks
mom.
fantastic.
So nobody's had a loud backyard barbecue in a while. What's up with that?
Gee,
I
what
didn't even see him
fertilizer
go
are
to the
you
store.
using?
Yeah. All right, so let's wrap this up with my number 5, or at least my number 1 movie. That is my all-time favorite action movie, and it is about a cop that goes deep undercover on vacation to Beverly Hills to investigate the murder of his best friend.
Dun, dun,
Beverly
dun.
Hills Cop, Eddie Murphy as Axel Foley, with the greatest theme song that's played through the whole movie.
Oh, I'm relieved. I
Right.
thought when you're talking about a cop going deep undercover, you're going to talk about that Al Pacino movie.
Oh man, that movie is fantastic from start to finish. The whole like his botching of stopping the Dearborn hijack trucks with the cigarettes as they're just flying out, and the trucker is just hitting all the cars. The him getting come on shit. Rosewood and Taggart in trouble
Yeah.
constantly. But yeah, no, that's man, that movie and the sequel, because if there was a movie that had a better sequel than the original movie, that was number 2, Beverly Hills Cop 2. But both those movies together are equally as great. I just wish that we would get more movies like that now. It's sad that we
Yeah.
don't get a whole lot of just buddy cop movies anymore, or stuff like that. I was really having high hopes that we would get the fourth movie that Eddie Murphy was talking about working with Netflix on, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. Not with how Coming to America 2 came out.
Well, you never know. Now that Will Smith has been sidelined, maybe they'll go back and look at stuff like that. Because I think I read something last week about Beverly Hills Cop 4 on Netflix. Like I think they were moving forward. I'll have to go back and look and see if I can find it. Because I did read something. I'm like, oh, okay. Because I had not heard anything else about that. I'm like, oh, look at that.
Yep.
So, I mean, and nostalgia's coming in for a lot of stuff. So maybe there's going to be a shift.
We'll see. I mean, I want it to be, I want it to have the same tone though as the first two movies. I don't want it to be too overly comedic like 3 was. As much as I enjoyed 3, it felt like it was just capitalizing on the humor more than the seriousness of the situation that we're going on. Guys printing fake money at an amusement park.
That's
no.
Scooby-Doo. That's what that
is. That's not cool. I mean, that's not right of the character, to have to go through a situation like that after going through everything he's gone through with the first 2 movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my number 5, or not my number 1 movie. I don't know why. Or at least that's my 5 movies. So, in closing, there's a couple movies that we could have probably talked about. None of us talked about. Rambo: First Blood.
That was on my original honorable mentions list.
That is a fantastic movie, especially, but the action kind of just ramps up. It doesn't like start out.
Yeah.
Hypertension.
It takes a while to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the payoff is good.
Yes.
But it that's why it was going to be in my honorable mentions, because it took a while to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was great storytelling all the way through. It just, as far as being an action movie goes, I would call it more a suspenseful movie with action in it.
And it's funny though, that I feel for Rambo, for me, is that the first one is good enough.
Yeah.
As much as I enjoy 2 and 3, I haven't watched the last one. I felt that the first movie was perfect. You don't need to have a sequel for it. It's kind of like Highlander. You don't need a sequel for that. It was already the end of the story at the end of the movie. But
same thing with The
Yeah,
Crow.
I mean, there's definitely a handful of them, right, that we didn't touch on. I was kind of straying away from a lot of the 80s stuff, because it's not like a lot of the old 80s action movies, specifically the ones that, don't have the sci-fi elements to them, I didn't really get to until much later in life, right? And by that point, I'd already kind of been steeped in other types of films. So by the time I got around to stuff like, Commando, Cobra, and a lot of those movies, right, it was like I got to them and I saw them and I enjoyed them, but it wasn't really formative, right? It was yeah, they're enjoyable, and I'll go back and rewatch them anytime because they're really entertaining. But it was just whenever I think of action movies, they pop up as almost like memes, right? Of just, oh yeah, that one, that's really funny. It's Arnold, but it doesn't really stick out to me as just being of its own an action film, right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, movie I really want to put on there, but it really was just before my time, because I really wanted to focus on things from when I was in like middle school, high school. But Gross Point Blank,
That was
I
going to go on
really
my
wanted to put
list.
that in my top 10, but it's just outside for me, to where I didn't really grow up with it. I just saw it on TV after it had already come out, and I love it, but it's just not one of those things that came out while I was a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah, that was going to be another one of my honorable mentions, but the action sequences are kind of sporadic, but I like Hitman movies, and Grosse Point Blank was one of the first real Hitman movies that I really could get into way back.
Well, besides, like, for me, it would have been Big Hit if we're going to talk about another Hitman movie.
What?
But that's, I mean, as much as there's action scenes in that movie all the way through almost, there's a lot of comedy. So it's more of an action comedy than it just
Yeah,
straight
see,
action.
that was the other thing. It was
And that's kind of for where my list went, was I stayed away from things that were too funny. Because both even Beverly Hills Cop and Lethal Weapon are movies that have comedic elements, like I said, to, you know, kind of ease the tension of how serious the topic is or what's going on.
right. All right.
I mean,
And going
none's
back,
like blowing up a convenience store with a microwave, you know.
yeah.
Grabbing that kid playing on the arcade and running
Yeah.
out with them.
classic moment. But going along the lines of Smoking Aces, another movie I would watch, like the double feature, would be Lucky Number 11. I don't know if you've seen that.
It's been a
I
minute.
remember
right?
that one.
Josh Hartnett, Bruce Willis, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, another Hitman movie. Got a few good laughs in it. Got a little bit of fun action in it and stuff like that, and kind of a good twist at the end. You know.
Yeah, I was working at the movie theater when that film came out, and I remember watching it, but it just kind of came and went, I guess, for me. And it seems like for a
Yeah.
lot of people, right?
It
It's
didn't
sort
hang
of,
around long.
and I think maybe because I think that came out either, I think it was right after Sin City, because that's where Hartnett and all that was kind of going on. So if I remember right, the marketing it was kind of gearing it more away from what it actually was.
Right.
Like, it wasn't just like, you know, I don't know. I'd have to go back and rewatch it. I just remember whenever I got out of it, I had a different idea what that movie was going to be than what we wound up getting. But
Another good, somewhat action Hitman type movie would be The Jackal. Again, Bruce Willis. You know, Richard Gere.
Jack Black getting his arm blown off.
Great moment. And then getting completely taken out. You know, another great cinematic death. Get Jack Black.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's so much, right? When we start, I know a lot of action movies, specifically for me, tend to push almost towards more of the thriller side of it. I mean, and we already kind of talked about how like Lethal Weapon is actually a really dark movie, right? Collateral is pretty dark with the way that it goes about its business. You know, it's like, and then on top of that, a lot of we completely avoided stuff like Fast and the Furious, right? Where it's the big crazy popcorn movie type action stuff that goes on with it. But I mean, I know I tossed it out gently, right? But for all the Fast and the Furious stuff that goes on now and Transporter, right? Before I saw any of those, I watched Ronin with Robert De Niro, right? It was almost Mission Impossible-esque, right? Where you had the multiple groups that were backstabbing each other. You had the kind of spy thriller aspect to it. And they just had a great little car chase scene going down these little bitty narrow European streets all through the middle of it. And that's definitely a fun little film to check out if you've never seen it.
It was really hard to come up with movies that weren't comic book based. Because I really, really wanted to put Rocketeer on here because it fits in the criteria of a movie that's not sci-fi, other than the backpack.
The backpack. The backpack was the only fantastic element about it. Everything else was entirely believable.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess kind of going back to where I start getting onto lines, right, where you get into, there's a whole bunch of mafia movies out there that I really enjoy. If you're talking about something that's comic book based, there's Road to Perdition, which is a fantastic movie. Oh, wow. I just had the name and then it just, Miller's Crossing, right? Miller's Crossing has, if you want to see an amazing scene that utilizes a Tommy gun in just a ridiculous way, just go watch Miller's Crossing when they go to try and assassinate the main mob boss in that movie. and he wakes up to his house catching on fire and then just proceeds to just annihilate people with a Tommy gun. It's fantastic.
Two that I would add. One is going to add because Andrew was the one who introduced me to this one. Would be Children of Men with Clive Owen.
Okay.
And that movie was fantastic for just even like the ongoing set and scenes. Like there was no cuts. There was like long form shots completely in that movie a lot of times. But that kind of almost goes into that. The only reason why I didn't put it is because it still kind of goes into that whole post-apocalyptic story type. And then
It is definitely post-apocalyptic.
let me see. There was one. The other one was. Come on, really? I had it too. Because it had to do something with what you said, David. My brain went like right out the window.
Well, I was talking about Ronin or what?
No, it was when you were talking about the last thing before I brought up my first one. I should have said the other one before. Because it was like fresh in my brain at the moment whenever I was you were talking, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to say that. But then I was like, well, let me say this one first, and it just goes, no, completely gone.
You got to get a pad and write this stuff down. You're getting old.
I am getting old, man. It's like,
We're all getting old. It comes for all of us.
well, and it's also because, honestly, I don't talk about this stuff a lot. I used to. I used to be hanging out with my friends all the time, and we would talk movies, talk
Right.
shop, games, toys, whatever. The only thing is, like, I can talk about games that I'm playing because I know I'm like playing them right now, or I collect constantly toys, but I don't get to, other than with you guys, I don't get to talk about movies like I like doing. Oh yeah, I remember it was because I mentioned it before in the when we were kind of figuring out what we're going to talk about, at least the movies, the Untouchables.
Yes.
Yep.
That-
Yeah, I wanted to put that one on, but again, I wanted to focus on stuff that came out when I was a teen. I actually went to the theater and saw,
Mhm.
or saw very quickly after it came out. Stuff that was like my time growing up. So the stuff that my generation, my piece of the generation.
And that's the thing is, for these lists, it's going to be what represents us each, individually. So I know Dad was like wanted to talk about, if he would have been on, he would have talked about his movies, but he would have went into like how that some of the movies that you could list that were great action-packed movies may be frowned upon now by society because of some element in it that's not acceptable for the time.
Like Conan. Conan would have probably been on his list somewhere. I mean, there was a fantasy element, so it probably would have been like an honorable mention for him.
Well, for him, I know Die Hard would have been in there, and Lethal Weapon. Those are two
Yeah.
given right there. Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis, which is kind of a take on Yo Jumbo.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is he's going to be sitting there going, while he's listening to this podcast episode, he's going to be screaming at the TV, no, it's this. No, you need to say this.
And for me, what I really want to put on there too, and again, I wanted to focus on things that came out during my time, but the Jackie Chan movies, Rumble in the Bronx,
Oh, yeah.
Drunken
Yeah.
Master, those are great movies, and I love them.
Story.
But they're just not. They're not not from my time. So I wanted to save them for somebody else.
Well, and see, the thing is that when we get into like these more topics that like this that are going to be narrowing down to a particular genre. So like when we get into martial arts stuff, when we talk about just our top 5 movies like this, Enter the Dragon is going to be definitely a number one on a lot of people's, because it was just a fantastic movie. Bruce's last theatrical film that he did before
His last completed
film before he passed. So I mean, but then you got all the stuff from Jackie Chan, Tony Jaa,
Jet Li.
Sammo Hung.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people that are screaming right now of other martial artists that we're not thinking about. Jean-Claude Van Damme with Sport, and and Cyborg. Joking. He wasn't. That's a joke right
Skinny
there.
Steven Seagal, Fat Steven Seagal.
Sheriff Steven Seagal.
My favorite Steven Seagal is when he's eating a carrot.
But don't.
All right, folks, we're completely going down the rails of this episode. We hope
Yeah.
you enjoyed. Let us know down below what your top 5 action movies are. Remember, criteria is it has to be an action movie, no extra worldly elements in it, modern time action film. And it can be set in any period. It can be a Western, it can be a period piece, it can be whatever, but it has to be within those criteria. So we hope y'all enjoyed this episode. Remember, like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll catch y'all next week. Stay level, everyone.
Deuces.